Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're back on Remnant 2 for another build guide for an extra special one. This will likely be my last build guide until we get new content and some interesting things to explore. So let's get straight into it. We've landed here with an awesome mod power build using the Archon and the Summoner class. Let's go along and explain things as we get to them. We're using Archon as our prime. That gives us the Tempest perk, which automatically generates 15 mod power per second, and casting a mod doubles the value for 10 seconds. This helps keep everything together. And for our archetype skill, we're using Chaos Gates, which conjures a circle around us and gives us a bunch of all damage dealt and damage reduction. This stacks 50 times, leading to an absolutely crazy amount of all damage and damage reduction. Now we get some awesome perks here, such as Power Leak, Spirit Within, Power Creep, and of course Amplify. All of these tie together to create a really awesome loop of mod damage. As our secondary, we're using Summoner with the Flyer skill, but it doesn't really matter which one you choose. And the reason we're using Summoner is mainly for the Dominator perk, which gives us a massive 35% increase to mod damage and another 5% increase to mod critical chance. Pairing these two archetypes together creates an absolutely crazy amount of mod damage, which you're going to see in the video. As for our gear, it doesn't really matter what you're using, just try to get as much armor as possible while staying under the flop weight. So we're using Lido Mark 1 helmets, the Disciple mantle, Lido Mark 2 leggings, and Lido Mark 2 gloves, and you can see our fashion here. As for our heart, we're using Profane Heart with elemental damage, mod damage, and mod duration. I recommend keeping these three in. For our main gun, we are using Monolith with Feedback. Feedback just going to help us keep up Sandstorm more often and keep that 15% additional damage applied to enemies at all times. For the melee weapon, it's a little bit irrelevant. I just have World's Edge with Tainted Blade so that I can apply a damage over time at a far distance. As for our backup weapon, we can use any weapon here that can take a mod and a mutator. So we're using the MP60 with the Firestorm mod, which is absolutely insane. And then as our mutator, we're using Spellweaver. This is going to give us some good uptime on our skills, as well as just play into the loop of mod and skill damage. For our amulet, we are using the Energized Neck Coil, which gives us a 20% increase to status effect damage. Now you can swap this for something like Chains of Amplification. They essentially do the same thing. Chains of Amplification will give us 20% all damage against enemies suffering from a status effect, but I do like Energized Neck Coil for the big explosion that you get when you first apply a status effect to the enemy, and that's why we're keeping it on with this build. Timekeeper's Jewel plays perfectly into this as it increases the duration of all the negative status effects that we apply. Ring of Rare Death duplicates the last damaging negative status effect that we have applied to a target, but it does reduce our outgoing status effect damage by 10%, but it's not too noticeable compared to the damage that we're actually gaining from it. For our second to last ring, we're using Burden of the Sciolist, which reduces our ammo reserves, which we're not worried about, but increases skill and mod damage by 15%. This is quite a massive increase. And then lastly, in our flex slot, we're using Stone of Malevolence, which gives us 15% additional mod power from elemental damage. However, you can swap this in and out depending on what you need. If you want some more plain all damage, go ahead and use something like Burden of the Destroyer. Or if you want some more cooldown, use something related to cooldown. A direct replacement for Stone of Malevolence is going to be right over here, the Cataloger's Jewel, which is going to give us 10% or 10 mod power generation per second rather. As for our traits, you can see what we're using here. We're using Flashcaster, Regrowth, Kinship, Affliction, Vigor, Spirit, Expertise, Amplitude, Barkskin, Siphoner, Handling, and Fitness. Now an honorable mention that you might want to use here, I do not have it currently, but it is Chakra. That's going to increase our mod duration, but honestly we're getting so much mod energy that we're able to refresh our mods before they run out, so I didn't find Chakra was really needed. As for the things that are mandatory, I would 100% always run Kinship. That way we do not absolutely nuke ourselves from our Firestorm. This is going to help just stay alive. And Amplitude is going to massively increase the range of our Firestorm as well as our Tornado. Mudtooth's Tonic is our trusty choice right here, giving us 20 max health, getting us up to 150 in total, just for a little bit more survivability, but you can use whatever tonic you want. And then you can just see a quick peek of my stats. This is how everything is sitting at this current setup. Now the build is extremely simple. All you have to do is pop your mods and use your skill if you're fighting a boss or a really tough elite. But you can see that as we're popping our mods, we're getting so much energy back that we can constantly refresh them, keep putting on new dots, keep exploding with the energized neck coil. And you can just, if you watch the mods alone, it's actually insane how quickly they do refill. I'm shooting one, I'm switching, I'm shooting another, I'm switching, I'm shooting another, and that's basically the entire loop. Now, if I had to say, the only real downside of this build to me is it's just so visually polluting. I mean, you saw there when we were standing, if you're fighting a boss that has small telegraphed moves, it's really difficult to see everything through the amount of fire that's actually going on. But you can see here, it works very simply. And if you're fighting a boss, you want to have your summons up just for a bit of a distraction. Pop the gates ability, and then you'll see you're going to get even more damage and more mod regen per second. And this is when it becomes a little bit crazy. You can see our mods are basically always up. We don't really need the extra duration, but the damage is really, really insane. And you're going to see that in the clips that I do show you. But that's going to be it for me. If you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing. Leave a comment down below, and until next time, farewell.